Ex-wife crashes billionaire CEO's post-wedding Thanksgiving in $500 million jet with his secret quadruplet. "Hello, Daddy," the small voice said. "Mama told us you didn't know about us because you were too busy being important." Marcus Bennett's coffee mug fell from his hands as he stared at four kids standing in his doorway. They all had his exact eyes. His jaw. Even the same stubborn cowlick he'd fought his entire childhood. "Natalie, what is this?" His voice barely came out as a whisper. "This, Marcus, is what happens when you disappear on someone," his ex-wife said, standing behind the children with fire in her green eyes. "Meet Aurora, Tyler, Emma, and Jake. Your kids. The family you walked away from 7 years ago without even knowing they existed." His new wife Sarah appeared behind him. "Marcus, who are these people? What's going on? Have you ever had everything you thought you knew about your life completely destroyed in 30 seconds? Have you ever found out that while you were building your dream life, you were actually missing the most important thing that ever happened to you? What would you do if your biggest mistake showed up at your front door with consequences you never saw coming?" This is the story of a man who thought he had it all until he discovered what he'd really lost. A story about the choices we make when we're young and scared, and how those choices can come back to change everything we thought we wanted. If you're already hooked, hit that like button because what happens next will shock you. Trust me, when you hear how this family reunion unfolds on Thanksgiving Day, you won't be able to look away. Let me take you back to exactly 18 minutes earlier when Marcus was having what he thought would be a normal Thanksgiving morning. Marcus had been watching the security feed on his phone when that private jet touched down on his estate's runway. The registration number made his blood freeze. N847RB. Natalie Rose Beaumont. He'd memorized those letters and numbers years ago when he'd planned to surprise her with her own plane for her architecture business. Back when he thought they'd spend their whole lives together. "Everything okay, honey?" Sarah had asked from across their kitchen. She was arranging flowers in crystal vases, getting ready for their first Thanksgiving as husband and wife. They'd been married exactly 3 months and 2 days. "Yeah, just business stuff," Marcus had lied, watching the sleek aircraft taxi toward his private terminal. But his heart was pounding so hard he thought it might actually explode. Why was she here? After 7 years of complete silence. Why today? The doorbell had rung exactly 18 minutes later. Marcus's mother Helen had rushed to answer it before anyone could stop her. She always did that. Answered doors like she was expecting long-lost family members to show up unannounced. "Marcus," she'd called out, her voice carrying this weird mix of excitement and confusion. "You have some visitors." And that's when Marcus stepped into his foyer and saw them. Natalie, looking like success, had treated her very well. Designer clothes, confident posture, the kind of presence that fills a room. But it wasn't Natalie who made his knees almost give out. It was the 4 kids standing next to her in perfect formation. 2 boys, 2 girls, all about 6 years old, all looking exactly like him. Same gray eyes that had been staring back at him from mirrors his whole life. Same stubborn chin that every Bennett man had inherited. Same impossible-to-tame hair that had made his school pictures look ridiculous. "I tried to tell you," Natalie said, her voice steady, but Marcus could see the pain flickering behind her eyes. "I left 17 voice messages. Sent dozens of emails. I even flew to Chicago and waited outside your office building for 3 straight days. But you'd already moved on, hadn't you? Changed your number. Changed your email. Changed your entire life. Erased me so completely that when I tried to reach you with the most important news I'd ever had to share, there was just silence." The memories started flooding back like a dam had burst in Marcus's brain. The hostile takeover attempt that almost destroyed Bennett Industries. The 18-hour days. The sleepless nights. The decision to change all his contact information because his lawyers said it was safer. The way he'd shut down everything in his life that didn't directly serve saving his dad's company. including the woman who'd been carrying his children. I didn't know, Marcus said, and the words felt like they were tearing his throat apart. I swear, Natalie, I had no idea. Would it have mattered? She asked, and there was something broken in her voice despite how strong she was trying to sound. If you had known, would you have chosen us over your empire? That question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Marcus opened his mouth but nothing came out. Because the honest truth was something he couldn't say in front of these 4 beautiful kids. 7 years ago, desperate and scared and consumed with grief over his father's death, he might have seen a family as an obstacle to saving the company. And that realization made him hate himself. Picture this. You're 25 years old. Your dad just died. The company he built from nothing is about to be stolen by vultures. Everyone's looking at you to save it. And the woman you love is telling you she's pregnant with not 1 baby, but 4. What would you have done? Really think about that for a second. Mama, one of the boys said, tugging on Natalie's coat. This had to be Tyler, based on his serious expression and thoughtful eyes. Is he going to tell us to leave like that man in Singapore did? Singapore. Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. She'd built a whole life there. Raised his kids on the other side of the world. Found someone else to love. Someone who'd eventually rejected them. No, sweetheart, Natalie said, kneeling down to Tyler's level. We're just here for a visit. So you can meet your dad and your American family. Why does he look so sad? Emma, the smallest of the 4, stepped closer to Marcus with the kind of fearless curiosity only kids have. Are you sad because we surprised you? I'm not sad, Marcus managed to say, his voice thick with emotions he couldn't even name. I'm just surprised. It's a very big surprise. Good surprised or bad surprised? Jake, clearly the boldest of the group, stared at Marcus with a directness that reminded him painfully of himself as a kid. Good, Marcus said without hesitating, and as he said it, he realized it was true. Despite everything this meant for his marriage, despite the chaos this was about to create, despite how complicated his life had just become, these kids were good. They were his. Very, very good. Sarah moved past Marcus then, and he could see she'd pulled herself together with the kind of control that came from growing up in political families. Her dad was a senator. She knew how to handle crisis situations, even when they were personal. I'm Sarah, she said to Natalie, holding out her hand. Marcus's wife. I think we need to talk. Yes, Natalie agreed, shaking Sarah's hand with equal composure. I think we do. The tension between these 2 women was so thick you could practically see it. Marcus found himself caught right in the middle, between the family he'd never known existed and the life he'd carefully built without them. Maybe we should move somewhere more comfortable, Helen suggested, using her mom instincts to defuse the situation. The living room overlooks the lake. The children might like that. And we obviously have a lot to discuss. As they moved into the spacious living room, Marcus watched his kids take in their surroundings. The massive Christmas tree that dominated one corner. The fireplace with family photos going back generations. The oil paintings of ancestors they'd never known but whose blood ran through their veins. Is this really where you live? Aurora asked, her voice full of wonder. It looks like something from a movie. It's just a house, Marcus said gently, settling on the couch across from where Natalie sat with all 4 kids practically glued to her sides. A really big house, but still just a house. Our house in Singapore has a swimming pool, Jake announced proudly. And Mama designed it herself because she's the best architect in the whole world. The pride in that little voice made Marcus's chest feel tight. These kids loved their mother with the pure, complete love that only children can give. They'd grown up hearing stories about their missing father, but Natalie had clearly never turned them against him. She could have. She had every right to. But she hadn't. Your mama is an amazing architect, Marcus agreed, meeting Natalie's surprised look. I followed her work. The floating hotel in Thailand. The eco-friendly skyscrapers in Dubai. The underwater restaurant in the Maldives. Revolutionary stuff. A slight blush colored Natalie's cheeks. You've been keeping track of my career. Your professional work, yes, Marcus said, though it was only half the truth. He'd read every article, watched every interview, studied every photo of her projects over the years. Hungry for any connection to the woman he'd loved and lost. Your innovations in sustainable architecture have changed the entire industry. Mama says buildings should help nature, not hurt it, Emma said, climbing onto Natalie's lap with the easy affection of a well-loved child. And that beautiful things can also be smart things. Your mama is absolutely right, Marcus said, watching Emma snuggle against Natalie's shoulder. These kids were clearly adored. Clearly the center of their mother's universe. Sarah cleared her throat softly. Maybe we should discuss the practical aspects of this situation. How long are you planning to stay in New York? We're not staying, Natalie replied, her tone carefully neutral. This was supposed to be a short visit. I wanted the children to meet their father and learn about their American heritage before we make some major decisions about our future. What kind of decisions? Marcus asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Natalie's expression became guarded. I've been offered a position heading the sustainability department for the United Nations. It would mean moving to Geneva permanently. The children would grow up as European citizens. Those words hit Marcus like a physical attack. Not only had he missed the first 6 years of his children's lives, but now he was about to lose them completely to an ocean and a life he'd never be part of. You can't do that, he said, the words coming out stronger than he'd intended. You can't take them away now. Not when I just found out they exist. I'm not taking them away, Natalie replied, her voice steady but her eyes flashing with old pain. I'm making the best decision for their future. The same way you did 7 years ago when you chose your company over us. I didn't choose the company over you, Marcus protested, very aware that his kids were listening to every word. I was trying to save it. My dad's legacy. Hundreds of jobs. Everything he'd worked for his whole life. I thought I was being responsible. By cutting me out completely. By changing your number without telling me. By disappearing so thoroughly that I couldn't reach you even with news this important. Natalie's composure cracked a little, showing the hurt she'd been carrying for 7 years. I was 24 and pregnant with quadruplets, Marcus. I needed you. And you were gone. The accusation hung in the air between them, witnessed by 4 pairs of gray eyes that watched their parents with the serious intensity of kids trying to understand adult problems. If this story is hitting you right in the heart, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to choose between responsibility and love? Have you ever made a decision that seemed right at the time but destroyed everything that actually mattered? Keep watching because this story is just getting started. I'm sorry, Marcus said, and the words felt completely inadequate for how badly he'd messed up. I'm so sorry, Natalie. If I could go back and change everything. But you can't, she interrupted gently. We can't change the past, Marcus. We can only decide what happens next. Then let me be part of what happens next, he pleaded, his carefully controlled facade completely crumbling. Please. They're my children too. Don't take them to Geneva. Stay in New York. Let me know them. Let me be their father. What about your wife? Natalie asked quietly, glancing at Sarah, who looked like she'd been frozen in place. What about the life you've built here? Marcus turned to look at Sarah, seeing his own shock reflected back in her expression. 3 months ago, they'd gotten married in a ceremony that made the society pages. They'd promised to build a life together based on mutual respect and shared goals. They'd planned a calm existence of charity events and business dinners. A partnership between equals without the messy complications of overwhelming emotion. Now those plans were completely destroyed by the arrival of a love Marcus had never fully gotten over in children who carried his DNA and his heart. "Sarah," Marcus began, but she held up her hand to stop him. "Don't," she said quietly. "Don't make promises you can't keep or apologize for things you can't control." She stood up gracefully, smoothing her skirt with hands that barely shook. "I need time to think about this. I'll be at my parents' house in the city." She moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at the children who were watching her with curious eyes. "For what it's worth," she said to Natalie, "they're beautiful children. They have his eyes." Then she was gone, leaving behind only the faint smell of her perfume and the weight of a marriage that might not survive the day. In the silence that followed, Jake climbed down from the couch and walked over to Marcus with the direct approach of a kid who'd inherited more than just his looks. "Did we make her upset?" he asked, his little face worried. "Mama says we should never make people upset on purpose." "You didn't make anyone upset," Marcus assured him, dropping to one knee so they were at the same height. "Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings about complicated situations. But none of this is your fault. None of it. Are you going to be our real dad now?" Aurora asked, joining her brother with the casual courage of childhood. "Like a dad who lives with us and reads bedtime stories?" That question pierced Marcus's heart with its innocent hope. "I want to be," he said honestly. "But being a dad is something I need to learn, and we need to get to know each other first. Is that okay?" All four children nodded seriously, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest. A fierce protectiveness and love that had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with the instant connection he felt to these small people who shared his eyes and his stubborn chin. "Can we stay for Thanksgiving dinner?" Tyler asked quietly. "We've never had a real American Thanksgiving before." Marcus looked at Natalie, who was watching the interaction between him and the children with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Would you like to stay? All of you?" She hesitated, clearly torn between protecting her children and giving them this chance to know their father. Finally, she nodded. "If you're sure it won't cause more problems." "It won't cause problems," Marcus said, meaning it completely. "It's a gift." But here's what Marcus didn't know yet. Outside, Sarah wasn't just going to her parents' house to think. She was making phone calls. To lawyers. To her father the senator. To people who had the power to make Marcus's life very complicated very quickly. And Natalie wasn't telling him the whole truth either. The UN position wasn't the only reason she'd come. There was something else. Something that would change everything Marcus thought he knew about the last 7 years. But for now, in this moment, Marcus was falling in love with his children. As the day went on, he found himself amazed by each of them. Aurora's artistic eye as she examined the paintings on the walls. Tyler's thoughtful questions about the family photos scattered around the house. Emma's infectious laughter as Helen taught her to play the piano. Jake's fearless enthusiasm as he explored every corner of the estate like he owned the place. They were brilliant and beautiful and completely themselves. They carried pieces of both their parents in ways that made Marcus's heart ache with possibility and regret. During quiet moments, he caught himself watching Natalie. Noticing how time had changed her. The new confidence in how she carried herself. The laugh lines around her eyes. The graceful way she moved through space like she belonged anywhere she went. Success had been good to her. Had given her the platform to shine that he'd been too young and scared to provide. But he also saw the shadows in her expression when she thought nobody was looking. The way she held herself slightly apart from all the warmth and chaos of family life. Like she was afraid to trust it completely. As afternoon turned to evening and the kids were settled in the library with Helen for stories, Marcus and Natalie found themselves alone on the back deck overlooking the lake. "They're incredible," Marcus said, breaking the comfortable silence. "You've raised them beautifully, Natalie. They're kind and confident and curious about everything." "They're easy kids to love," she replied, pulling her sweater closer against the November chill. Even when they're exhausting and demanding and ask 1,000 questions about everything. I want to be part of that, Marcus said, turning to face her completely. The exhaustion and the demands and the 1,000 questions. I want to be their father in every way that matters. And Sarah? Your marriage? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking carefully about his answer. I married Sarah because she was safe, he admitted. Because loving her wouldn't consume me the way loving you did. But that's not fair to her. And it's not fair to me. A marriage shouldn't be a safe place to hide from feeling too much. Natalie's breath caught slightly at his words. Marcus. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he said quickly. I'm not asking you to forget the last 7 years or pretend that what I did was anything other than devastating. But I am asking for a chance. Not just with the children. With you. With us. There is no us, Natalie said quietly, but her voice didn't sound convinced. Too much has happened. Too much time has passed. Has it? Marcus asked, stepping closer. Because when I look at you, I see the woman I fell in love with in college. The one who designed entire cities for fun and believed architecture could save the world. The one who made me laugh and challenged me and made me want to be better than I was. That woman was naive, Natalie replied, but she didn't step away. She believed in fairy tales and happy endings. Maybe fairy tales are just stories about people who are brave enough to fight for what matters most, Marcus suggested. Maybe happy endings are for people who refuse to give up on love, even when it seems impossible. The sound of children's laughter drifted from the house, carried on the evening breeze like a promise of what could be. Natalie closed her eyes, and Marcus saw the exact moment when her carefully built walls started to crack. I loved you so much it almost destroyed me, she whispered. When you disappeared, when you chose everything else over us, I thought I would die from the pain. I can't survive that kind of heartbreak again, Marcus. And I won't let my children go through it either. Then don't let me break your heart, he said, reaching out to gently touch her face. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that I choose you. All of you. Above everything else. Always. For a moment, she leaned into his touch, her eyes closing like she was savoring the contact. Then she pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself protectively. It's not that simple, she said. You have responsibilities here. A life you've built. A wife who deserves better than being abandoned for an old love. And I have the UN position. A chance to make a real difference in the world. What if we made it simple? Marcus asked. What if we stopped letting fear make all our decisions? Before Natalie could answer, the deck doors burst open and 4 small figures tumbled outside, followed by Helen's apologetic laughter. Grandma says we can make s'mores by the fire pit, Emma announced breathlessly. But only if our parents say it's okay. Please, Mama. Aurora added, bouncing on her toes with excitement. We've never made s'mores before. Looking at his children's hopeful faces, Marcus felt his heart expand with so much love it was almost painful. I think s'mores sound perfect, he said. What do you think, Mama? Natalie smiled. The first genuine, unguarded smile he'd seen from her since she'd arrived. And Marcus felt like he could breathe again for the first time in 7 years. I think, she said, s'mores sound like exactly what we need. As they gathered around the fire pit, watching their children laugh and get sticky fingers from melted marshmallows, Marcus caught Natalie's eye across the dancing flames. In that moment, surrounded by the family he'd never known he was missing, he made himself a promise. He would fight for this. For them. For the love that had never really died. Just waited patiently in the shadows for its second chance to shine. But what Marcus didn't know was that Sarah had just finished a very important phone call. And tomorrow morning, everything was about to get much more complicated. The road ahead would be filled with difficult conversations and painful choices. But for the first time in 7 years, Marcus felt truly, completely alive. And he wasn't going to let that feeling go without the fight of his life. The next morning brought chaos that Marcus never saw coming. He woke up to 17 missed calls from his lawyer, David Chen. When Marcus finally called back, David's voice was tight with stress. "Marcus, we have a problem. Sarah's father called Judge Morrison at 6 this morning. They're claiming you've been hiding assets and children from your marriage. They want an emergency hearing to freeze all your accounts pending a full investigation." Marcus felt the coffee turn to acid in his stomach. "What are you talking about? I didn't hide anything. I didn't know the kids existed." "That's what we'll argue, but Marcus, this is serious. Senator Preston has connections everywhere. If they can prove you concealed information during your marriage negotiations, they could go after everything. The company, the houses, even custody arrangements with the children." "Custody arrangements?" Marcus's voice came out strangled. "They're my kids, David. Not legally, they're not. You're not on any birth certificates. You've never paid child support. In the eyes of the law, you're just a man claiming to be their father. And if Natalie decides to take them back to Singapore..." Marcus hung up the phone and immediately called Natalie at her hotel. She answered on the first ring. "We need to talk," he said without preamble. "Right now. In person." An hour later, they met at a small cafe in town, away from the chaos of lawyers and family drama. The kids were with Helen at the estate, blissfully unaware that their newfound happiness was already under attack. "Sarah's trying to destroy me," Marcus said as soon as Natalie sat down. "Her father's using his political connections to freeze my assets and challenge my parental rights." Natalie's face went pale. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. There's something else, isn't there?" Marcus studied her expression carefully. "Something you haven't told me. The real reason you came here." Natalie was quiet for a long moment, staring at her untouched coffee. Finally, she looked up, and Marcus saw tears in her eyes. "The man in Singapore. The one Tyler mentioned. His name was James Richardson. We were engaged. I figured that much out. He died 6 months ago. Cancer. But before he died, he made me promise something." Her voice broke slightly. "He made me promise to bring the children here. To let them know their real father. He said every child deserves to know where they come from." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "He sounds like he was a good man. He was the best man I've ever known. After you." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "He loved those kids like they were his own. They called him Papa James. And when he was dying, he told me that no matter how much it hurt, I had to give them the chance to know you. Because that's what love does. It puts the children first, even when it breaks your heart." The weight of this revelation hit Marcus like a truck. This man, this stranger who had loved his children, had been more of a father to them than Marcus ever had. And even facing death, he'd been thinking about what was best for them. "There's more," Natalie continued. "The UN position. It's real. But I haven't accepted it yet because I wanted to see what kind of man you'd become. Whether you were still the person who could walk away when things got difficult. And what's your verdict?" Before Natalie could answer, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Helen. "Emergency. Come home now. Bring Natalie." They raced back to the estate to find Helen in the living room with all 4 children gathered around her. Emma was crying. Tyler looked angry. Jake was pacing like a caged animal. Aurora sat perfectly still, which was somehow the most unsettling of all. "What happened?" Marcus asked, dropping to his knees in front of them. "Some lawyers came," Tyler said, his 6-year-old voice trying so hard to be brave. "They said we might have to go back to Singapore right away. That you might not be allowed to see us anymore." Marcus felt rage building in his chest like nothing he'd ever experienced. "Who told you that?" The lady lawyer was really mean, Emma sobbed. She said our mama was a liar and that you didn't really want us. Marcus looked at Helen, who was shaking with anger. 3 lawyers and a social worker showed up here an hour ago. They had some kind of emergency order. They questioned the children, Marcus. Without you or Natalie present. They made these babies think they were in trouble. The protective fury that roared through Marcus was primal. These were his children. His babies. And someone had made them cry. Someone had made them feel unwanted. Where are they now? Marcus's voice was deadly quiet. Gone. But they said they'd be back tomorrow with more questions. Marcus stood up and looked at Natalie. This ends now. I don't care what it costs me. I don't care if I have to fight every lawyer in the state. No one makes my children feel like they're not wanted. No one. But then something unexpected happened. Jake stepped forward and grabbed Marcus's hand. Are you really our dad? He asked, looking up with those serious gray eyes. Like, really? Yes, Marcus said without hesitation. Really? Then we're not scared, Jake announced. Papa James always said that families stick together no matter what. And if you're our dad, then we're a family now, right? Out of the mouths of babes. This 6-year-old boy, who'd lost the only father figure he'd ever known, was teaching Marcus what it meant to be brave. Right, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. We're a family. Aurora finally spoke up, her voice small but determined. The mean lawyer lady said Mama lied about you wanting us. But that's not true, is it? You do want us. Marcus knelt down and opened his arms. All 4 children ran into them without hesitation, and Marcus held them tight, breathing in their little kid smell of shampoo and cookies and possibility. I want you more than anything in the whole world, he said into their hair. And I will never, ever let anyone make you feel unwanted again. That's a promise. When he looked up, Natalie was crying. But for the first time since she'd arrived, they weren't tears of pain. What do we do now? She asked. Now we fight, Marcus said, standing up with Emma still clinging to his leg. But first, we need to have a family meeting. They gathered in the living room, all 6 of them plus Helen. Marcus had never chaired a more important board meeting in his life. Here's what's going to happen, Marcus began. Some people are trying to cause problems for our family because they're angry and scared. But we're not going to let them win. What kind of problems? Tyler asked. Legal problems. Money problems. The kind of problems that grown-ups create when they can't handle their emotions properly. Marcus looked each child in the eye. But I want you to understand something. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone says, you are my children. You belong here. You belong with me. And I will fight anyone and everyone to make sure you know that. Even if it means losing all your money. Aurora asked with the startling directness of a child. Especially if it means losing all my money, Marcus replied. Money doesn't matter. Family matters. And you 4 are the most important thing that's ever happened to me. Share this video if you believe family should always come first. Because what happens next will restore your faith in the power of love over everything else. Jake climbed onto Marcus's lap. Papa James told us stories about knights who fought dragons to protect their families. Are you going to be like a knight? I'm going to try to be the best knight you've ever seen, Marcus promised. Emma giggled. Knights need armor. Do you have armor? I have something better than armor, Marcus said, looking at Natalie. I have love. And love makes you stronger than any armor ever could. Helen cleared her throat gently. Marcus, there's something else you should know. Your phone has been ringing all morning. Reporters. They somehow found out about the children. Marcus's blood chilled. Media attention was the last thing his kids needed right now. How bad is it? Channel 7 is parked outside the gates. The Tribune wants a statement. Someone leaked the story about the emergency custody hearing. Marcus closed his eyes, trying to think. Then he opened them and looked at his family. His family. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to tell the truth. All of it. We're going to own our story before anyone else can twist it. Marcus, Natalie said carefully, are you sure? Once this goes public, there's no taking it back. I've spent 7 years hiding from the truth, Marcus replied. I'm done hiding. These kids deserve a father who's proud of them. Who fights for them. Who tells the whole world how much he loves them. 2 hours later, Marcus stood in front of the cameras with his family beside him. Natalie held Emma and Aurora's hands. Tyler and Jake flanked Marcus like bodyguards. Helen stood behind them all like a protective grandmother bear. My name is Marcus Bennett, he began, looking directly into the camera. 7 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I thought I had to choose between love and responsibility. I thought I was being mature by putting business first. I was wrong. He gestured to the children beside him. These are my children. Aurora, Tyler, Emma, and Jake. I didn't know they existed until yesterday because I was too proud and too scared to return phone calls from the woman who loved me. I missed the first 6 years of their lives because I thought building an empire was more important than building a family. His voice got stronger as he continued. But I'm not missing another day. Not another hour. These children are the greatest blessing I never knew I had. And anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me directly. A reporter shouted a question about Sarah and the divorce proceedings. My wife Sarah is a good woman who deserves better than what I put her through. I married her for the wrong reasons, and that's not fair to her or to me. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is admit when you've made a mistake and try to make it right. Another reporter asked about the custody battle. There's no custody battle, Marcus said firmly. These are my children. Their mother is an incredible woman who raised them beautifully while I was too foolish to be part of their lives. We're a family now, and we're going to figure out how to make this work together. What about your business empire? Someone called out. Marcus looked down at Jake, who was holding his hand with complete trust, and felt something shift in his chest forever. Business empires come and go, he said. Family is forever. And if I have to choose between money and my children, that's the easiest choice I'll ever make. When they went back inside, the phone was already ringing with calls from board members, investors, and business partners. Marcus ignored all of them. Instead, he sat on the floor and helped Jake build a fort out of couch cushions while Aurora drew pictures of their new family. That evening, Sarah called. I saw the press conference, she said quietly. Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't honest with you about Natalie. I'm sorry I married you for the wrong reasons. You deserve someone who loves you the way I could never love anyone but her. I know, Sarah said, and there was sadness but also relief in her voice. I think I always knew. The way you never talked about your past. The way you held part of yourself back. I thought I could live with that, but seeing you with those children today, that's how someone should look when they're with their family. I hope we can still be friends, Marcus said. In time, maybe. Right now I'm hurt. But Marcus? Those kids are lucky to have you. Don't screw this up again. After Sarah hung up, Marcus found Natalie on the back deck, watching the sunset over the lake. Any regrets about coming here? He asked, settling beside her. About 1,000, she said with a small smile. But none of them involve our children getting to know their father. The UN position. I turned it down this morning. Marcus's heart stopped. Because of me? Because of them, Natalie said, nodding toward the house where their children's laughter echoed through the windows. They've been through enough changes. Enough loss. They need stability now. They need to know their dad. And what do you need? Natalie was quiet for a long moment, watching the last rays of sunlight dance across the water. I need to know that you're not going to run away the next time things get difficult. I need to know that when you say you choose us, you mean it. Not just when it's easy and romantic, but when it's hard and messy and complicated. How do I prove that to you? Time, she said simply. Just time. Over the next few weeks, Marcus learned what it meant to be a father. Not the biological part, but the daily, moment-by-moment part. Waking up to Emma crawling into his bed because she had a nightmare about the mean lawyers. Teaching Tyler how to throw a football in the backyard. Helping Aurora set up an art studio in one of the spare bedrooms. Watching Jake fearlessly climb trees that were way too tall for a 6-year-old. He learned that being a parent meant having your heart walking around outside your body. Every scraped knee, every tear, every moment of disappointment felt like it was happening to him directly. But he also learned about the incredible joy of it. The way Jake ran to him when he got home from work, like Marcus was the greatest person in the world. The way Aurora saved her best drawings to show him at dinner. The way Emma fell asleep holding his hand. The way Tyler asked him serious questions about life and actually listened to the answers. The custody challenges fell apart within a month. DNA tests confirmed what everyone could see with their eyes. Character witnesses came forward to speak about Natalie's fitness as a mother. And most importantly, the children themselves, when interviewed by a family court counselor, made it clear where they wanted to be. We want to be with our mama and our daddy, Emma had said with 6-year-old certainty. Together. Like a real family. The business took a hit when Marcus restructured his priorities. He sold 2 companies and delegated most of his responsibilities so he could be home for dinner every night. Some investors called him crazy for walking away from billion-dollar opportunities. Marcus didn't care. He was making up for lost time, and no amount of money was worth missing another bedtime story. 6 months after that Thanksgiving day that changed everything, Marcus and Natalie were married in a small ceremony in the garden behind the house. All 4 children served as the wedding party, with Helen officiating as an ordained minister online the night before. Do you, Marcus Bennett, take this woman and these children to be your family? Helen asked with tears in her eyes. I do, Marcus said, looking at Natalie in the simple white dress she'd chosen, surrounded by the 4 most beautiful children in the world. For the rest of my life, I do. And do you, Natalie Beaumont, take this man who finally learned what matters most? I do, Natalie said, and her smile was brighter than the sun. When it came time for the kiss, Jake shouted, "You, gross," and all 4 kids dissolved into giggles that made the whole ceremony perfect. That night, after the children were finally asleep after hours of excitement, Marcus and Natalie sat on their deck overlooking the lake. Any regrets? Marcus asked, taking her hand. Just one, Natalie said. I wish Papa James could have seen this. He would have been so happy to know the kids found their dad. Marcus squeezed her hand. I think he knows. And I promise you, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be half the man he was to them. You don't have to be him, Marcus. You just have to be you. The real you. The one who builds forts and reads bedtime stories and shows up when it matters. 2 years later, Marcus stood in the same spot where he'd first seen his children, watching Aurora teach her new baby sister how to stack blocks. Tyler was explaining quantum physics to his 1-year-old brother, who was more interested in eating his toys than learning about science. Emma and Jake were racing around the yard with a pack of neighborhood kids, their laughter echoing across the water. Natalie appeared beside him, carrying a cup of coffee and their newest addition, 3-month-old Hope, who'd been the surprise that completed their family. Thinking deep thoughts? Natalie asked, settling against his side. Thinking about how close I came to missing all of this, Marcus replied, wrapping his arm around his wife and daughter. If you hadn't been brave enough to show up that day. If Papa James hadn't made me promise, Natalie corrected. He's the real hero of this story. Marcus nodded, watching Tyler patiently help Emma build a treehouse in the old oak by the lake. I hope our kids grow up understanding how lucky they are. Not because of money or houses or any of that stuff, but because they get to see what real love looks like. They'll understand, Natalie said confidently. Because we'll show them every single day. And they did. Marcus never missed another bedtime story. Never missed another school play or soccer game or art exhibition. He taught Tyler about business and Jake about courage and Aurora about following her dreams and Emma about standing up for what she believed in. He learned that success wasn't measured in dollars or deals or magazine covers. Success was measured in goodnight kisses and proud smiles and children who ran to you when they needed comfort. The business empire survived, even thrived, under Marcus's new leadership style. Turns out that a man who fought for his family was exactly the kind of leader people wanted to follow. And late at night, when the house was quiet and all 7 members of their family were safely asleep under the same roof, Marcus would sometimes stand in his children's doorways and make the same promise he'd made that first Thanksgiving Day. He would never stop fighting for them. Never stop choosing them. Never stop proving that love was stronger than fear, stronger than pride, stronger than anything the world could throw at them. Because that's what fathers do. Real fathers. They show up. They stay. They fight for what matters most. And what mattered most was sleeping peacefully down the hall, dreaming of tomorrow's adventures and Daddy's bedtime stories and a family that would never be broken again. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because I have more stories like this that will restore your faith in love, in family, and in second chances. Stories about people who choose love over fear, who fight for what matters most, who prove that it's never too late to make things right. Because in a world that often feels broken, we all need to be reminded that love wins. Family wins. And sometimes, just sometimes, we get the chance to rewrite our ending and create the happily ever after we always dreamed of. Don't miss out on these stories that will change how you see love, family, and what it truly means to come home. Subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next one.